It was billed as the heavyweight contest of the cricket world, the number 1 and 2 ranked teams slugging it out in front of a Perth crowd that at times roared louder for the tourists than the hosts. Australia came out swinging in the first round and landed a number of beautiful left-right combinations that had India staggering to the corner at the bell. Well, it sounded for the second round and it was Jasprit Bumrah with all the moves and all the punches. The Aussies were forced into a corner they could never box their way out of. The match didn't even get to the final round with India's arm raised, the result a second innings TKO.
You sit in the change room after a loss like that and it hurts. The most important thing is how do you bounce back?
This Australian side, so resilient over the journey, is starting to show its age. Have Steve Smith's eyes gone? Can Marsh Labuschagne survive another Bumrah onslaught in Adelaide, with the pink ball at twilight of the day-night test certain to present a new challenge? There were very few positives for the Australians to come out of the West Test. Travis Head's 89 in the second innings, Alex Carey's patience batting with the tail, 47 from Mitch Marsh, although he looks a little sore, 5 wickets from Josh Hazlewood, and then there was India, led by Bumrah with a 5 in the first innings at 8 wickets for the match. Majestic centuries from Jaiswal and Kohli, a team decimated by injury and absence and now empowered by bravado and confidence. Jackson Barrett, chief cricket writer for the West Australian, informed and entertained us with his in-depth analysis across 4 days and joins us on the West Sports Show podcast. With all the cherries on his creams, he's been shining the ball up. Welcome, Jackson.
Hello, mate. How are you? Thanks for having that's some intro. It's got the juices flowing.
Did I get the juices flowing? Well, I think
you did.
We had the juices flowing, but I've got to say, I think the most entertaining thing for me was Jaiswal, for sure. I wanted to see him bat, and I certainly got to see him bat. And Kohli, I think even the most ardent Aussie fan would have had to have stand up and applaud that innings.
Yeah, Jaiswal was really special for a couple of reasons. I love the way he worked through a really difficult period early. I spoke to a couple of very good top order batters yesterday, and Hazlewood had his measure for the first half hour. He could have snicked off any number of times at the start. He really battled with when to come forward and when not to, which you can understand. His only experience on these wickets has been a series in South Africa where he really battled. But the ability to work through that, he adjusted to the conditions, and then some of the stroke play was mind-blowing.
Wasn't it? What about the 100, the ramp shot for his ton?
Incredible. So it's ended up over fine leg. Some of that stuff was remarkable, but all the meat and veg is there as well for Jaiswal, which I loved. And then I thought Kohli was really special. I probably feared that we might not see a Virat Kohli innings like that in Australia this time. After the first innings, I wrote that he was at a crossroads after day one. And it's funny, lots of people have commented and said, you got this one wrong, but I don't think they understand what a crossroad is. He made a decision and he came out, he had a better situation. He came in at 2 for 14 in the first innings. He came in at 2 for 300 in the second innings.
Yeah,
so clearly a
bit of a difference,
a better situation.
Plus, you've had an innings to adjust to the irregular, the bounce and it's a different wicket here.
But he batted beautifully. He treated Australia's part-timers with indignation at the end of day 3. I absolutely loved it. The over that Labuschagne bowled to him late on day 3 was declaration bowling, but I loved the way Kohli looked like he'd been facing his little brother in the backyard for a couple of hours and he was sick of it, and he could hit that ball wherever he liked. He clubbed one through mid-wicket between fielders 10 metres apart that went for 4.
That was a magnificent... How was the timing in that shot?
And then 2 balls later, he short-armed one that went straight down the ground.
Oh,
it was a man that could just hit the ball wherever he liked.
Now, let's talk through a few of the issues around the Australian team. Let's start with Steve Smith. Has he lost his eyes?
Well, Steve Smith loves to talk about his hands. In 2019, when he had that incredible series... and then the winter ashes that followed, he said that he'd found his hands and it's about his grip and that sort of thing, and that dictates his ability to play through the leg side and access 360 degrees like he does at his best. The word out of the Australian camp before this match was that and Pat Cummins used the term, his hands found their way to Perth, which was a ripping line.
Well,
from
I think
Pat.
he left them on the baggage carousel.
He might have. I saw it just enough in the second innings to believe that Steve Smith could still produce something in this series. He did the hard yards yesterday. He played the spinners really well. He was probably the best at dealing with Bumrah and Siraj in a tricky period, other than Head, who had a different approach to it. Was the best at dealing with them. A first ball duck, they say that you can be out of runs but not out of form, and that first ball duck, yep, it was ugly, and Labuschagne's was ugly as well, but I did want to see him bat for an extended period of time, and I probably saw just enough. He made 17 yesterday. He would have been disappointed with his dismissal, but I'm not writing off Steve Smith just yet.
No, nor am I. I'm happy he's back at 4 and you stick with Steve Smith.
Yep.
But I'm not sticking with Marnus Labuschagne. Now, I'll preface that by saying I don't think they'll make a change to this Test team. We've seen that. They've shown their card in the past, and they're number 1 ranked nation in the world at the moment, and they've had a good sustained period. So you can understand why they'd back themselves. But I am not going into this Adelaide Test with Labuschagne. I'm doing a bit of a shake-up. I'm worried we're throwing McSweeney to the Wolves. I'm putting him back at his more natural 3, and I'm trying to open with someone else. Now, I'm not sure who that is. I'm a bit of an advocate for Inglis. I know in the past I've been I want a specialist opener in there. The question is, do we have one in form? Bancroft making runs today. Maybe it's Harris. I'm not sure, but I just think we need to give Marnus a rest because he just looks shot.
Feels cruel for Cam Bancroft, doesn't it, resuming the Shield today, 71 not out after all he's been through across the past month. I wrote in the West today that it's almost as hard to get out of this team as it is to get in it. It's been that way for 4 or 5 years. If you look back at guys that have struggled, really the only guys they dropped Travis Head for 1 match in India a couple of years, 18 months ago. He came straight back into the side. Cam Green, when he was injured with that soft tissue in the Ashes, he had to wait his time because Mitch Marsh had played so well. But the last time they genuinely discarded someone was Marcus Harris in January 2022 after the Ashes. It's the last time someone was dropped and genuinely not given another opportunity. It's just not something they do. So Labuschagne will play in Adelaide. Like, you can almost put your house on that. I would give him some cricket across the weekend. There's a PM's 11 game in Canberra. It's 2-day. It's pink ball. It starts on the 30th against India. It won't be a full-strength side. I think Labuschagne should bat at number 3 in that game. He's also in Brisbane for a period of time over the next few days. He'll head there today, being Tuesday. I wouldn't be opposed at all to him playing for Redlands, his club in Brisbane. I don't think that'll happen. Pat Cummins basically knocked that on the head last night. Well,
Pat Cummins at his press conference basically intimated there's not going to be a change.
Yeah. So I think you can expect them to roll straight through, and I don't think you can expect Labuschagne or McSweeney or anyone to play some extra cricket. I wouldn't open with Inglis. I think there's a belief in the system that opening would be a bridge too far for him. As talented as he is,
at first class
never
level.
opened in first class level. And batting at 3 with Bumrah, you might as well be opening. I would imagine, particularly with McSweeney there. I think if again, I don't think they will make a change, but if I was to make a change, I think Marcus Harris would be like your stopgap guy, a guy that you can come in and know that he's going to make a decent fist of it at opening. And if you wanted to use that to take the pressure off McSweeney, he could bat at number 3. I think Labuschagne looks as if he has a muddled mind and not that really clear head that he seemed to have when he's at his best. He was so worried about the Bumrah ball that was swinging away that he got wrapped on the pads twice by the ball that came back into him. Him and McSweeney, and they're very similar players, they're very close. They looked the whole time like, don't play at it, don't play at it, don't play at it.
Don't get out rather than taking the game on.
For that 4th stump line ball that's moving away from them, they didn't want to get sucked into that and be out kind of driving in a really ugly manner. And then they were so hell-bent on leaving the ball Labuschagne's second dismissal, and it was ugly, leaving the ball, like his typical big extravagant leave, and it comes back in and hits him on the pads, and then
burnt a second review along the way.
And just for the drama, he trips over himself trying to get out of the way of it as well, and ends up on his belly on the turf. So, I don't think they certainly won't make a change. I'm
more of a Harris. You're more of a Harris.
I think so. I'm an advocate for Josh Inglis. Josh Inglis is a wonderful cricketer. I love that he's played different format, but he's played against Jasprit Bumrah before. He's played in World Cup finals and big games and big series and made hundreds against this Indian bowling attack. I think opening is a bridge too far. I'd love to see Josh Inglis have a go at some point in a middle order reshuffle when that time comes. I don't think he's up for opening, and I think there's a belief in the system that he's not.
I'm looking ahead to the Ashes next year, and I'm thinking we need to get an opener in there. I mean, Khawaja didn't have his greatest test either, where there's going to be some change. Cam Green comes back into that side by next summer, you would hope. But I guess while I'm looking ahead, it's only 1 test out of 5 down. So we will still back ourselves to win this, and we could easily turn it around in Adelaide. But I just think Bumrah, Adelaide, pink ball, day-night test. I'm really fearful for anyone with a muddled mind in that environment.
It's a flipped script, isn't it? Because Australia never loses pink ball tests, and even against Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad coming out here with a pink ball, and Trent Southey coming out here, and Tim Southey and Trent Bolt coming out here with a pink ball. It always was like, oh, there's that threat there. But now Bumrah feels like this completely overwhelming presence with a pink ball that could really do some damage. But the life comes out of pink balls, and I feel like if they can get through that period, there will be runs in Adelaide, but there will be 2 for India as well. So for the first time in a pink ball tester, I feel like Australia's not coming in with the most dangerous attack. I don't remember thinking that before in
we stick with our attack, though, clearly.
Oh, no, 100%.
100%.
Yeah. And they
bowled well in the first innings.
Yeah.
You know.
First innings was really good. Second innings, for the large part, was okay. Like I said, they really tested Jaiswal early. Jaiswal and Rahul, the hour against the first new ball was probably the most important period of the game outside of Bumrah's bowling to get through that and then open the door for other things. But there were chances in there as well. It wasn't chanceless, Jaiswal. I saw people write that it was, but he could have edged any of those deliveries. So yeah, no, the attack will be set. I think they would like to be able to get through this summer. They've got bowling there, but I think
You reckon they'll play all 5, all of them?
I think that is plan A.
Stark?
I think Stark looked as good with the new ball on day one as he has for quite some time. It took him an over or two to find his radar. Look, these guys will be sore, but I think, plan A is for... It wouldn't surprise me at all if Boland plays at some point. I think Michael Neser would have played at some point if he didn't do his hammy in that Australia A game. But their wish will be to get through.
Just on that, Mitch Marsh, is he a little bit sore? He looked a little bit sore, made some runs in the second innings, took some wickets in the first. So he's contributed, but how's he pulled up?
Yeah, I thought he bowled pretty well in the first innings, which surprised me because his preparation hasn't been great. So he bowled in an ODI in that September tour of England and was so sore that he had to miss the next game. He then came home and was on a managed build-up. He told reporters 2 days out from a Shield game against Tasmania in October that he was going to bowl in that game and then never did. So then that kind of put even more cloud over how his build-up was going. He has been bowling in the nets, significant loads in the nets. But then he had his first child about a week out from the test, and it just all felt a little bit all over the place for Mitch. So I was really pleased for him that he went so well in the first innings. But then morning of day 3, he didn't bowl at all. Evening of day 2, he spent some time off the ground. He looked as if he was getting treatment. There was talk he might be battling an ankle injury. And then Pat Cummins said in his presser last night that it kind of confirmed that he's been battling a couple of niggles on the way in and that he's pulled up pretty sore. Pat backed him in to bowl in all 5 matches. But I wouldn't be so sure. I think it wouldn't shock me if Bo Webster or Aaron Hardy, probably more likely Webster because he's had a sustained run at the start of this season, were called on at some point. Mitch didn't look great. He looked like he was labouring, even running between wickets in his 47 batting with Travis Head. Head looked like a little Energizer bunny between wickets and Marsh just wasn't quite going with him at times. So I think he'll get up for Adelaide just because there's this really significant break. The Adelaide test starts on December 6 and the last one finished on November 25. So he'll play the next one, but I'd be concerned about his ability to get through all 5.
So now we know Rohit Sharma is back. So he's back in the country. He was back for the end of that test. So he plays in Adelaide.
Yep.
Shubman Gill, fractured thumb. He's no certainty to play in Adelaide.
No, he's no certainty to play in Adelaide. I think he's still a decent chance to play in Adelaide. Listening to a few of people who know Indian cricket very well over the last few days, it sounds as if Rohit will come in and obviously replace KL Rahul at the top of the order. Interestingly, before Yashasvi Jaiswal made his 160, I don't think his position was assured at all because he had not proven himself whatsoever on these sort of decks. So he's earned his spot. I think what they do is Sharma comes in and opens. They've then got Devdutt Padikkal, who batted at 3, and Dhruv Jurel batting at 6. They'll be the guys in the firing line. I think the first to go will probably be Jurel.
Yeah.
Padikkal showed a little bit, particularly in the second innings. It was only 25, I think, but it was a really important innings after Rahul had got out to help Jaiswal keep moving things along. So I think he probably keeps his spot. Jurel didn't inspire overly. Took a really nice catch at bat pad yesterday, but I think Rahul will slide back to 6, where he's batted in the not too distant past in Test cricket. And then Patakal will be on the chopping block if Gill plays. They'd like Gill to bat at 3. I think Patakal's a bit of a placeholder at the moment, as much as he showed a little bit. So it's pretty scary to think that this side could now become Jaiswal, who's been anointed the Prince of Indian cricket, and then Sharma, who's the captain, Gill, who's the other kind of star boy coming through.
And the king still.
Then you get into the king and the rest of them and everything else in the middle order. The other one with a watch is Mohammad Shami hasn't played cricket for about a year. He played Ranji Trophy over the past couple of weeks, and there's talk that he might be shoehorned into a game towards the end of the series. He would walk into this side as much as the seamers Harshit Rana and Nitish Kumar Reddy looked really good, and Siraj has been great. Shami would play. The 3 would be Bumrah, Siraj, and Shami as first choice, and then
the spinner. So like the beautifully named Washington Sundar. I love the name. And there was hype about him possibly slotting into that number 3. So they rate his batting. He's made runs in the domestic competition. Jadeja and Ashwin. So one of those should come in for Adelaide.
I think I wouldn't be surprised if Sundar is left out. There's 2 ways to go with the spinners. It probably will be a decision for once to have a look at the wicket. I think Sundar was probably favoured here because of his extra height.
Yeah.
So they would have seen Nathan Lyon's superb record here in the way he uses the bounce, and also Corey Rocacholi bowling a lot for WA with his extra bounce. And I mean, Sundar actually bowls a lot like Ashwin. He's got that funny load up and its arms and legs everywhere, but he's a little bit taller and he generates that bounce. He wasn't required much, and I'm sure they knew that going in, so he brings that little extra bounce, but he was never going to be required much. He took 2 wickets on the final day, but it was more about his batting. I think they will either pick 2 spinners, and Washington will be one of them, and then maybe Ashwin the other. But the straight swap for Washington would be Jadeja, and I can see that happening just because they're going to need more overs. I like Jadeja being left arm ortho as well, just offers a bit of a different look at things for Australia. So I wouldn't be surprised if that change is made. Jadeja's brilliant with the stick as well. He's scored 50s here too.
And plenty of time now between this test and the Adelaide test to make that call. So Jackson Barrett, thanks very much for your analysis, and we look forward to more of it as we approach the Adelaide test.
Thanks, Quarters. Cheers.